Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and very good news in regards to the IndyBuild Airbus A350 today. IndyBuild have just released version 1.0.4, which comes with a good load of fixes, but also some important information that you should absolutely be aware of. But before we start going into some of the details, let's go ahead and have a look into the three major points from my perspective. So we're going to start right on the outside. You already see the first major point, and that's the winglets, which have been updated. So the A350 has two different types of winglets. It has long winglets and short winglets. Airlines such as, for example, Lufthansa have the long winglet version installed on their aircraft, and that one was a little bit buggy. Let's go inside and go right to the back over here and have a look from the passenger's perspective. Previously they were too straight, they weren't round enough like the actual A350 winglets are, and that's been corrected, so a new winglet model has been implemented. Do note that this requires you to update all your liveries from the IndyBuild manager, respectively if you are using liveries from FlightSimTO or other sources, then the repainter actually has to update them to fit with the new model. So if you are just using your good old model, or your good old liveries that you used beforehand and they all of a sudden don't look right, then that's probably the reason. Go ahead and check for updates for the liveries in either the Indy Manager or wherever you downloaded the previous liveries. Another nice perspective on the new winglet, by the way, over here, where you can really see that new round model of the winglet over here. So really good looking if you ask me. Now let's go ahead and have a look at the second big point, and that's the engine spool behavior that's been improved. Now previously, when your engines were on idle thrust and you increased them to 25%, which you do when you start the takeoff run, then your engines would be there almost immediately. But look at how they improved it now. Let's set 25% here, as you would to stabilize the engines before takeoff, and you can see several different characteristic behaviors here for jet engines. So let's start with the basics. A jet engine that's really in ground idle takes a long time to respond. Let's have a very close look now. And once it starts responding, it's going to start to respond quicker. So when we move the thrust up to 25% now, you can see how it's initially very slow, and then it's really accelerating. And once it's stabilized, then you would set your takeoff thrust, and that's how you would set thrust for takeoff. Well, very nicely done by IndyBuilds. And if we're already looking at the eCam, then we can look a tiny bit further below as well, onto the fuel page, where we've got the next new feature, and that's fuel temperatures. So the fuel temperatures are now animated live, and they are now changing live. However, in the Airbus A350 there is one big difference to older aircraft types such as the A330. It has a heated fuel tank, so you do have heat exchangers there, and they basically ensure that the temperature never drops below minus 20 degrees, keeping it a far-fetched from the freezing point of about either minus 41 or minus 50, roughly minus 48 degrees, depending on which type of fuel you have loaded in your aircraft. So that's a pretty good update to see that this has been changed and is now working correctly on the A350. Going on then, there is one more feature that I personally really appreciate that I pushed them for, and that's the range of information displayed on the nav display. So previously it was limited to 100 to 120 nautical miles range for things such as airports. So basically when you were on a 160 or 320 or 640 range, you wouldn't see any airports up there. And that's quite a problem for flying long haul, because you fly over so many remote locations that you just don't see any of your possible alternate airports. This has been changed. Now you can see that it's showing us airports at much greater ranges, which is exactly how the real airplane would do it, and which is coming in very handy when you're flying long haul over remote locations. Think Africa, think Northern Canada, Oceanic, you name it. Apart from these changes, there have been a lot more changes implemented. The full changelog is available on the IndyBuilds Discord, which links to their forum. I'll just quickly scroll over it over here, and I am of course gonna link it in the video description down below. So here's the major features they describe. You can nicely see the difference between the new and the old modeling of the winglet over here, and then there is a huge log of different fixes, WASM crashes, and well, read for it yourself. A lot of very nice stuff in here that you can get. Now, when you are downloading the IndyBuilds Airbus 350 update, be sure that you follow the advice from the forums, which tells you to delete your WASM folder in order to be able to run the update properly. And you can once again find that in the IndyBuilds forum. In the FAQs down here you got the how to clear the WASM folder thread, which I'm also going to link in the description below. Note that this is going to reset your throttle calibration, your connection to Navigraph, and Navigraph data on the OIS. So you got to re-establish those. Down here are the links. Basically go to there and delete all the contents of the folder in here. And you do have to do that before installing each update. Well, and that's the IndyBuilds Airbus A350 update in Chime. Now, I do have a couple more videos coming up with the slightly older version, but I am going to mark those in the video description so that you guys are aware if something is recorded with an older version. And I'm really looking forward to go flying. Now remember, you will have to set up some stuff over here again. Most importantly for me, it always hits me on the throttle control. So on throttle calibration, you'll have to reassign those. And in my case, I always have to reassign the idle only, because it still remembers if you want to have reversers on axis. It remembers that to be no, but for some reason still applies that to the idle descent. So always have to redo this when your thrust levers are in idle. Apart from that, you just got to reconnect to Navigraph using the third-party app down here, and thereafter you're all set to go. Also be aware that if you do an update like this, your nav database might reset, so after you've reconnected to Navigraph, you might have to reselect or re-download the data, and you just do that going down here into the third-party app, then connect via that QR code and update the nav data, and thereafter you just gotta go out of the aircraft status pages here, so back to init, then back to aircraft status, and that recalls the update so that you can then use the current nav database that you've updated through your Navigraph account. Well, and that's all there is to it. So let me know if you've already tried the new updates. Be sure to leave your feedback on how you like the A350 in the comments underneath the video. I'm certainly loving it. I will do a little bit more detailed video very soon where I'll go into a couple of the pros and cons that some of you guys are writing out there on the internet. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.